A teacher? Seriously, Olivia. Chloe's nose wrinkled, the scent of overly priced perfume assaulting my senses at the annual Sterling family summer barbecue. My stomach dropped as her words sliced through the humid Chicago air, thick with the aroma of grilling meats and simmering resentment. Outside, the manicured lawn stretched towards Lake Michigan, a picture of effortless wealth. My hands trembled as I gripped Ben's hand tighter. Chloe's voice dripped with disdain, a familiar melody of judgment directed at my life choices. Ben, a waiter at that little Italian place, as my mother so eloquently put it, squeezed back, a silent promise of shared defiance. Inside, I was screaming. Outside, I remained composed. My sister's dismissive tone always dug deep, a constant reminder of her relentless pursuit of status. Later, a text flashed on Ben's phone, deal closed. Zurich account confirmed. A small smile played on his lips. Perhaps Chloe's world was about to get a rude awakening. Ever felt that burn? Subscribe for a story that flips the script, proving worth isn't in your wallet. Prepare for some serious karma. The disdain started long before that barbecue, festering like a wound ignored. Christmas 2010. Chloe, then basking in the glow of her engagement to a commodities trader, received a diamond necklace, each facet reflecting the merciless winter sun. I unwrapped a sensible, if unflattering, sweater set. Practical, my mother chirped, missing my forced smile. The disparity stung, not for the jewels, but for the implicit message. Chloe, with her ambition and connections, was valued more. Ben, witnessing this, simply held my gaze across the crowded living room, his eyes holding a quiet fury that mirrored my own. It was a silent understanding, a pact forged in the crucible of family expectations. Then there was the investment opportunity. Chloe, after landing a job at a marketing firm, was gifted a significant sum to invest in a promising startup. I was offered a pat on the head and told to be careful with my savings. I recalled my father saying that I was being flighty and impractical for wanting to spend my time teaching young children. The unspoken truth hung heavy in the air. My passion was deemed frivolous, my dreams irrelevant. The final straw came at my engagement party. Chloe, after downing her third glass of champagne, cornered Ben. "So, a waiter, huh? Do you even have ambition?" she slurred, her words laced with malice. Ben's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. I intervened, steering her away, but the damage was done. That night, Ben looked at me, his blue eyes hardening. "Enough, Olivia. It's time they saw the truth." The game had begun. The next 5 years were a study in contrasts, a symphony of hidden triumphs and surface-level dismissals. Each condescending remark from my family fueled the fire, each raised eyebrow a testament to our careful orchestration. Our simple life became a shield, deflecting scrutiny while Ben, still ostensibly a waiter, masterminded acquisitions and philanthropic ventures from his laptop in our modest apartment. Our lives were far from easy. There were months where the weight of the deception pressed down, heavy and suffocating. The leaky faucet, the temperamental furnace, the worn furniture, these weren't staged, but real, tangible reminders of the sacrifices we were making. The scent of mildew from the basement still sends chills down my spine, a phantom echo of those difficult days. Success bloomed, silently and powerfully. First, the community center. Ben, using a shell corporation, funded a much-needed renovation, transforming it into a vibrant hub for after-school programs. Chloe, oblivious, volunteered there, bragging about the generous benefactor, never suspecting the connection. Second, the scholarship fund. Designed to support underprivileged students pursuing careers in the arts, it quietly elevated talented young minds, offering them opportunities my family would have deemed unworthy. The irony was almost too much to bear. Chloe even sat on the board for the fund, proudly announcing each year how she was so blessed to be a part of something so important. Then came the urban farm project. A blighted lot, once a symbol of neglect, transformed into a thriving oasis, providing fresh produce to the local food bank. My parents scoffed, dismissing it as a hippie fad. The silence became our weapon. We reveled in their ignorance, in their inability to see the empire growing beneath their noses. No extravagant displays, no flashy cars, no designer labels. Our wealth was channeled into purpose, into building a legacy of impact, not indulgence. We watched with detached amusement as Chloe chased fleeting trends, her life a constant performance for an audience that grew increasingly indifferent. One evening, at another excruciating family dinner, Chloe regaled everyone with her latest triumph, securing a lucrative partnership with Sterling Ventures for her firm. "They're so impressed with my vision," she gushed, her eyes shining with ambition. Ben, sitting beside me, simply smiled, a silent thunderclap gathering in his eyes. My parents nodded approvingly, oblivious. That night, Ben proposed to me, the ring sparkling under the dim lights of our modest apartment. The time for games was coming to an end. A jarring ringtone shattered the Sunday morning calm. My phone buzzed an unknown number. Telemarketer. I almost dismissed it, but a nagging feeling persisted. "Olivia, it's Mom. Your father, he's had a heart attack." The words hit like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. My carefully constructed world, with all its hidden layers, suddenly felt fragile, insignificant. Prepare. I took a shaky breath, willing myself to focus. Time to go home. The hospital waiting room was a symphony of hushed anxieties and stale coffee. The sterile scent of antiseptic hung heavy in the air, a grim reminder of mortality. Chloe, mascara smeared and radiating self-importance, was already holding court, regaling a captive audience with tales of her heroic efforts to get Dad to the hospital. Classic Chloe. My arrival caused a ripple of awkward silence. My mother rushed over, her eyes red-rimmed, offering a hesitant hug. The contrast was stark. The last time I'd seen them, I was the underachieving daughter, pitied for my simple life. Now I was met with a nervous deference, a subtle shift in power dynamics that was both unsettling and undeniably satisfying. Ben hadn't arrived yet. My mother fretted over me, offering a lukewarm cup of tea and peppering me with questions about my job, my little apartment, my future. I answered vaguely, carefully avoiding any details that might betray our secret. The lies felt heavier now, tainted with the weight of my father's illness. He was still oblivious to the hidden empire under his feet. "So, what does Ben actually do all day?" Chloe's voice, sharp and grating, cut through the tense silence. I took a slow, deliberate breath. This was it. My eyes met Ben's across the room. He offered a barely perceptible nod. "Time to unleash the storm," I smiled softly. "He manages our investments, Chloe." Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows arched skeptically. "Investments? With what money? Your teacher's salary." A ripple of amusement spread through the gathered family members, their faces etched with a mixture of pity and condescension. "Actually," a calm voice interjected. All eyes turned to the doorway. Ben's father, Charles Sterling, stood there, his presence radiating quiet authority. "My son Benjamin has been quite successful, perhaps too modest." A beat of stunned silence. Then Chloe sputtered, "Mr. Sterling, what are you doing here?" She took a step forward, her hand outstretched in a practiced gesture of familiarity. Charles ignored her. "Benjamin manages a significant portion of Sterling Ventures' portfolio. He's responsible for several of our most successful acquisitions in the last 5 years." He paused, letting the words sink in. "In fact, that community center renovation you were so proud to volunteer at, Chloe, that was Ben's doing. As was the scholarship fund and the urban farm. Every single project, all under his supervision." The color drained from Chloe's face. Her jaw dropped, her meticulously applied makeup failing to conceal the sheer horror dawning in her eyes. A strangled gasp escaped her lips. My mother's teacup clattered against the saucer, shattering the fragile porcelain into pieces. Her eyes darted between Ben and Charles, disbelief warring with a dawning understanding. But he's a waiter," Chloe stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Charles chuckled, a low, resonant sound that filled the room. "He was a waiter, a very observant one. My son wanted to see what people valued, not what their bank accounts contained. He seems to have proven his point." Ben stepped forward, taking my hand. "It was an experiment, Chloe, and you, my dear sister-in-law, provided ample data." He squeezed my hand, his gaze unwavering. "The game is over." The silence after Charles' pronouncement hung thick and heavy. Finally, Chloe found her voice, laced with desperation. "Ben, this isn't funny. Tell me this is a joke." Her eyes darted around the room, seeking validation, finding none. Ben's silence was his weapon. He merely raised an eyebrow, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes. "You laughed then. You're not laughing now. I thought my own satisfaction a dangerous, intoxicating brew." My mother, recovering slightly, stammered, "But all this time, the apartment." "A temporary measure, mother," Ben replied smoothly. A chance to live without the baggage. Then came the avalanche. Ben, darling, Chloe simpered, sidling closer. I always knew you had potential. That marketing idea I pitched last month. Maybe Sterling Ventures would be interested. I remained impassive as Ben listened politely, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. My mother, ever practical, chimed in. Olivia dear, with Ben's connections, perhaps your father could get into that exclusive clinic. Inside, I recoiled. Exploiting a heart attack for personal gain? Unbelievable. I cut them off with a single, carefully chosen sentence. You judged a book by its cover, now you get to read the whole story. Another pause, longer this time. Then Chloe, her voice dripping with venom, hissed, You planned this, didn't you, Olivia? This was all a game to humiliate us. I leveled my gaze, my voice calm and unwavering. It was an observation, Chloe. You provided the humiliation. The silence was deafening, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of a heart monitor down the hall. And in that moment I knew I had won. Checkmate. The air crackled, thick with unspoken recriminations and dawning horror. Before anyone could fully process the shift, I continued, my voice calm, almost clinical, a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil swirling around us. Actually, there's something else you should know. I paused for effect, letting the suspense build. A few years ago, Ben, under a separate entity, acquired a significant portion of the holding company that owns Dad's business. My father owned a chain of local car dealerships, his pride and joy, the foundation of their comfortable suburban existence. The holding company I mentioned was the financial structure that owned and operated the dealership group. It was a complex legal entity designed to protect assets and manage investments. I watched as comprehension slowly dawned on my mother. Her eyes widened and she clutched her chest, her breathing becoming shallow. Chloe, ever quick on the uptake, gasped, her face contorting in a mask of disbelief and fear. What? What are you saying? Chloe stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Dad's dealerships, I explained, my tone measured, are essentially controlled by Ben. Ben, beside me, remained impassive, his gaze steady. The room was silent as a tomb. The only sound was the frantic beeping of my father's heart monitor, a morbid metronome counting down the seconds. The reality of my words was crushing. My father, the proud patriarch, the man who had built his empire from the ground up, was unknowingly indebted to his humble son-in-law. The irony was almost unbearable. You wouldn't, my mother finally whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. You wouldn't do anything to hurt your father. I met her gaze, my expression unreadable. That depends, Mom. Does he regret judging people by their bank accounts? Does Chloe regret looking down on Ben? Does everyone regret the way they treated me? A wave of dizziness washed over my mother, and she swayed slightly. Ben reached out to steady her, but she recoiled, shrinking away from his touch. My father's business was more than just a source of income, it was his identity, his legacy. To lose control of it would be devastating, a blow that could shatter his very being. And I held that power in my hands. Ben's calm exterior cracked slightly with concern as he stared at my mother. Olivia, perhaps now isn't the time. I ignored him. The holding company is leveraged, Mom, heavily. It needs a substantial infusion of capital to remain solvent. I paused, letting the implications sink in. Capital that Ben controls. Chloe, ever the opportunist, jumped in, her voice laced with desperation. Ben, darling, I'm sure we can work something out. I have connections, expertise. I cut her off with a dismissive wave of my hand. This isn't about connections, Chloe. This is about values, about respect, about understanding that true worth isn't measured in dollars and cents. I turned back to my mother, my voice softening slightly. Dad's health is the priority. If he makes a full recovery, if he commits to change, Ben will ensure the dealerships are secure. But if he remains blinded by pride and superficiality, I trailed off, letting the unspoken threat hang in the air. The weight of my words settled heavily on the room, suffocating the air. I had revealed the ultimate leverage, the power that could bring my family to its knees. I had exposed their hypocrisy, their greed, their shallow values. And in that moment, I held their future in the palm of my hand. The choice was theirs. Years blurred. Chloe tried to reconnect, business pitches thinly veiled as familial gestures. My parents sent apologies, laced with guilt and pleas for forgiveness. I remained cordial, not cruel. Boundaries hardened, a fortress built on hard-won self-respect. Ben, now fully embracing his role, quietly restructured my father's business, securing its future and offering my father a dignified exit. The weight lifted, replaced by a lightness I hadn't known was possible. No more hiding, no more pretending. I left teaching, focusing on philanthropic work. The once unflattering sweater set was replaced with clothes that reflected my inner strength. No more leaky faucets. Looking back, the sting of those early years had faded, replaced by a quiet satisfaction. The wealth mattered little, but the freedom to use it for good was everything. Genuine change did stem from deception, but it was the truth it revealed about ourselves that mattered most. In the end, our manufactured game had transformed into authentic power. Ready to write your story? Success, revenge. Share this, ignite change, and remember, true wealth is living authentically.